Okay. Okay, great. Okay, Sydney, can you hear us? Sydney, can you hear us?
Are you saying Cindy or Sydney?
Sydney. Sorry, I better enunciate better. Sydney. She doesn't look like she can hear us. Okay, let's wait a few more minutes. But make sure you click on the chat down at the very bottom with you. Pick your cursor. Oh, wait, we do have a second page here. So it doesn't put all 50 of us there. There's a second page with more people on it. Not many, one more person. Okay, who else came on phone? Who's 410? Area code 410.
Hi, yep, it's Nancy. None.
Nancy, do you have a, can you get on a computer? Did you try the computer link?
I can't at the moment because I can't, so. But I'm good. I'm listening to you.
Yeah, I know, but the problem's going to be when we have breakout rooms later. But if you can't, you can't. We'll figure out a workout around. Uh-oh, we're also getting bad feedback. Okay, it may be time to turn mute on for everyone. Oh, I guess I need to do that. Okay, now you will still, it says wonder what that's all about. Everybody's muted. There, now it's working, right? Okay, good. Had me a little worried for a minute. Okay, so as people come on, I think there's a few new people. If you can go down to the bottom and click on the chat button, and it'll bring up a chat over on the right-hand side. And then you're going to be able to type there and introduce yourself to everybody. We got some great introductions there, and tell us a little bit about your organization and the work that you do. And then I think we're going to start in just a few minutes. One thing I want to say before we get started is that, you know, in the next couple of decades, we're going to be learning, whether we want to or not, new technologies, new platforms. You know, every month there'll be new ones coming. And Zoom is a very exciting platform. I urge you to check into it. It's low cost. It's video conferencing. It's pretty easy for people to get on. And it has breakout rooms, which we're going to experiment with. But it's also still a little clunky. And we may have some slowness and awkwardness when we switch from sharing screen to we're going to put you in breakout rooms and things like that. So I'm just begging you all to be really patient and to realize that it's part of the learning process, that we can't wait till things work perfectly to try them, because the benefits are so great from technologies like this to help us work together in new ways. And so just encouraging people to be really patient and relaxed and not critical when things go a little off, because we're all, you know, Zoom is pretty new, and we're all still learning it. Okay, so do we think we have everybody that we're going to have here? I think we're ready to go, right, Christy? Yana, ready to get on here. I'm wondering where Yana went. Okay, so what I'm going to do.
Hi, here I am.
You are somewhere in this. See, it gets to be so many people. I can't even. Oh, I guess there's 2 pages now. Yeah, wow, 2 pages. Okay, so we're going to start. Christy, you're going to say a few things first. So I need to unmute you. Oh, there you are, Yana. And do you want me to share the screen?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Yona.
Actually, I'll start us off. If you don't mind sharing the screen and starting off the PowerPoint, then I can just lead into your talk with a little introduction to Chesapeake Foodshed Network.
Okay. I'm going to try to first, now why are we not sharing the screen? You're seeing all my pretty desktop. Okay. The screen is sharing now. What did we decide? Did we decide that we were going to try to well, I don't have it in presentation mode. Do you think this is okay for right now? And I can put it in presentation mode in just a minute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. It is so nice to see everyone and to hear as people jumped on. And thank you so much for your willingness to experiment with us today. We're so glad to have you all. So I'll just start us off by welcoming everybody to the Network Development Series of the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. My name is Yona Sipos, and I'm the Program Director for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, which is coordinated by Local Concepts. And Local Concepts is a consulting firm providing the development and backbone support for the CFN. So I'm joined today by the owner of Local Concepts, Christy Gabbard, and another of the Local Concepts team members, Hannah Gross. And Hannah's the outreach coordinator for the network, and she's going to be live tweeting this meeting today. So maybe Christy and Hannah, I don't know if you just want to wave or say hi.
Just to point out to people, you can only see 4 people in this view, but what you can do, there's a little arrow down at the bottom, and you can toggle that to begin to see. So when Christy's talking, she's on my page too, and you'll be able to see her. So you can keep toggling around to people.
So great to see everybody. Lovely to see all the faces, really, and appreciate you being here today. And I'm excited to learn from June today and then go into the breakout sessions. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, echoing that. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really excited to learn all about new technologies and how to get better connected to all of you. As Yona said, feel free to join me in the Twitterverse. I'll be on there. Feel free to mention us at Ches Foodshed, or just give us a shout out, or if you have any questions, feel free to tag and we can continue the conversation later too.
Thank you both. And June, if you don't mind going to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So before we jump into the program for today and to hear from June, which we're really excited about, I'm just going to provide a really brief overview of the CFN. So the Chesapeake Foodshed Network is a group of organizations, businesses, funders, agencies, and other change agents working across the Chesapeake watershed, the Chesapeake Bay watershed, to build a stronger and more resilient food system. We're a relatively new initiative, about 2 years in the making, and the leadership group that spurred the network's development did so because they recognized that there was a great deal of extraordinary work being done to advance our regional food system, but there was no entity intentionally trying to foster connections, trust, and relationships out there doing the work. So the mission of the CFN is to catalyze connections and collaborations that help build a sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and equitable regional food system in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And we believe that by catalyzing connections and collaborations, we become stronger together such that we can help to accelerate change. As Hannah mentioned, we encourage conversation and communication, connection of all kinds and in various ways. And so at the bottom of the screen, you'll see some social media hashtags and usernames. And so we really encourage you to use those now or in the future. And we'd love to see your tweets. We're also on Facebook. And so we'd love to see you there as well in the future. Next slide, please, June. And so here's a picture of the network building blocks. The foundation of the network is really about building connections and getting to know one another, sharing information and knowledge, building relationships and trust with the thought that as we know one another better, we might see opportunities to align and work collectively toward action, which is the ultimate goal. And we support anyone who invites our vision of a sustainable, resilient, inclusive, and equitable regional food system to participate in the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. Next slide, please. And so the CFN has a number of different programmatic areas, and this network development series is a new area for us. We're really excited about it. And it includes opportunities for education, for strengthening the network, and opportunities to grow organizational capacity. It'll include webinars, video conferences such as this one, in-person meetings, regional tours, and workshops that all create space to share lessons learned, hear from experts, like our expert today, June Holley, and to strengthen our collective capacity. And so the next slide, June, is my last slide, if you don't mind advancing it. And I'll introduce June a little bit more in just a moment. But first, just before going over this part, I'll just share a few housekeeping items. So once we're in presentation mode, which I think June said she'll switch into shortly, in order to see the chats and participants, please click options. At the top of your screen, it says on my screen, it says you are viewing June Holley's screen, and then it says options. If you click on that and then click exit full screen, you won't see a video of everyone at once, but you can toggle through the video shots like we're doing right now. And so let us know by chat if you're having any problems with that, but hopefully that will enable us to continue seeing folks throughout the presentation. Also in the chat box, once you've once you've found a way to show that as well while we're in presentation mode, then please add your questions and your comments. Anybody who's joined since we started the presentation here, please say hello by chat, introduce yourself and your organization. You can say a little bit about what you're working on within the food system. And just so you know, Christy will be monitoring your questions and comments during the presentation, and we'll share them with June after the presentation. And then within a few days, we'll share a recording and any additional Q&A, as well as a post-webinar survey, which we would be very grateful if you would fill in with your feedback and insights, especially because we're all participating in this experiment together. One last thing here, if you've joined by phone, then please either try to actually join by computer and use the computer audio where possible, because that's going to give you the chance to see us, to show your screen if you're comfortable doing that, and we really invite you to do that to help with connectivity. But if you're just joining by phone, then please make sure you log in with your meeting ID. So again, you can either just hop off and join by computer, including computer audio, or log in with your meeting ID. And that's going to be really important after June's presentation when we go into virtual breakout rooms. So we'll have the chance to try out more Zoom features throughout the video conference. But for now, I think I'll leave the instructions and just introduce June Holley a little bit further. She'll be speaking today on tools and practices for highly effective networks. And June, we are so grateful to be working with June. She is a leading expert in these fields. She's been weaving economic and community networks for more than 25 years. In 1981, she discovered complexity science and became intrigued with the process of transformation. How could communities change in ways that would make them good places for everyone? With others in Appalachian, Ohio, she catalyzed cascades of experimentation, observing and documenting the dynamics that enabled hundreds of people to start and expand businesses. With these entrepreneurs, she mobilized dozens of area organizations to collaborate, self-organize, and create an environment that would help these businesses innovate and work together. After 20 years as the executive director of the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, she stepped down to devote her energies to helping communities around the globe form smart networks by training and supporting network weavers. Recent smart network projects have included communities, regions, statewide collaborations, healthcare and hospital systems, and others involving innovative networks. She's highly regarded as a dynamic keynote speaker and has led hundreds of interactive workshops on applying a network approach. She's already been welcoming everybody and encouraging everybody and being so calm and patient as we start off this new process. So I'm just thrilled, and we're all thrilled that June is here to teach us and to learn so that we can learn with her and all together. Welcome, June. Thank you so much. And just a reminder that there'll be a question and answer opportunity at the end of June's presentation, and that all resources will be made available afterwards by the Chesapeake Foodshed Network.
Great. Well, thank you. That sounded just so delightful. Now, I can't see you now. Let's see. I'm going to try putting this on. I know there is a way. Oops, that doesn't work. See, so now you're having to be very patient while I'm doing this. But we did have a way that worked that was really great, but I'm not being able to find it. Maybe Yana, you can help remind me, but when I go into presentation mode, it's not the same as what we did before. So I'm does this look good to people? Can they, is this a good visual? Should I just go with this?
It looks good. It looks good.
Okay, well, let's go with this. Okay, I want to say a couple things first. And first, that you should have all received a toolkit, a network building toolkit that has a lot of different activities in it. And I'm going to be referring to that throughout the talk. And if you didn't by some chance get that, make sure you put your name in the chat and we'll make sure that you receive that. And the other thing is that as I talk, I really want you to think about, what do you want, like, the Chesapeake Food Network to help you learn more about or do, things like, it could be anything from like learning more about Zoom, a practice session with that, to some of the concepts and actions that I'm talking about. So please jot those down, and there'll be a chance in your breakout sessions to talk with each other about what you'd like to see the network doing, and hopefully we can do some follow-up activities that are based on what you think you need to learn. So we're going to do 3 things today. We're going to try to understand some basic network definitions, because there's a lot of confusion about what are networks. What does that word mean? You're going to get some very concrete tips for improving your network, and hopefully you're going to get to go know others on the call, especially you can do that through the chat, or you can in the breakout rooms. I wanted to encourage you to put any questions that you have in the chat, and what we're going to do is try to collect them, and either if we have time at the end, or I'll answer those questions through an email that we'll send out or whatever. So please, encouraging you to ask questions so that you really understand this, so that you can actually try some of the stuff out. Okay, first of all, let's talk about what networks aren't. And when we talk about networks, we're not talking about just networking, because networking tends to be, things like passing out business cards and building your own personal network. And when we talk about networks, we're talking about you helping to build a network, make connections, connect other people with each other, so that there's a really great network that helps everybody be more effective in their work. And it's not about creating a new organization, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the benefits of networks, which are different than the benefits of organizations. And so networks are really about trying to help people get to know each other so that they can solve complex problems. Organizations are great for things when they're simple or when you're trying to do services. But when you're trying, most of you are involved in trying to transform the local food economies, or, transform food systems. And that is actually a really pretty complex thing, because you're trying to take it from where food is now to someplace that's more healthy and sustainable. And we don't exactly know how to do that. And so we're going to have to be very experimental, very innovative. And networks are great for that. But networks aren't about everybody kind of planning and deciding on one action to do. They're more about helping lots of different people collaborate and create new actions. Another thing is that we're trying to get people out of the network being the around the table model. And maybe in the chat you can say, hey, do you have an around the table model of networks where you get a group of people around the table, they come to a regular meeting and they talk, and hopefully if you've got a really good network, that talk ends up in some kind of action. But when you get that around the table, people tend to try to agree on something and do what is often the lowest common denominator. And the problem with that is that if you want to grow, if you want your network to grow, because we all need our networks to be a lot bigger to really be transformative, So network tables can only get so big. So you can see, here's a table and it's about as big as a table can be. And do you think these people are, able to talk to each other in this setting or to engage with each other or have relationships? No, look at, they're all sitting and looking at the talking head in the front of the room. So the table metaphor isn't really sufficient for what we need to do. We need a different model of what networks can be. So I'm an old sociologist, and sociologists, when they define networks, they're talking about, okay, it's a bunch of nodes, and nodes can be people or computers or whatever, and each dot on here is a node, and then it's about the relationships, have the people work with each other? Do they know each other? And every line on there is showing a relationship. Now, the interesting thing is that then when you draw a picture of a network, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later, what kind of pattern does it create? Because some patterns are really good for communication, for collaboration and innovation, and some are really not so good. So for example, here's an organization, and it's drawn out in a network diagram, and you can see the hierarchies, and you can see that maybe people down in the bottom row, they're not encouraged by that kind of network in an organization to communicate with each other. Usually they do anyway. And the second one is a coalition, where a set of organizations get together, maybe on a short-term initiative, but it's usually only one or two people from the organizations that get together, and all the staff in the organizations don't necessarily get a chance to know each other. And then, of course, there's the email list, which often email lists are huge, but they tend to be very one-way. So all networks aren't like really engaging and such. A network is just about nodes and their relationships. Here's one more, an example is like something like Move On, that basically sends out massive emails, do this, and, only engages people, usually as individuals. So those are kinds of networks that are not necessarily the kind that we need. And another colleague of mine and I looked at hundreds of different networks, some successful, some failures, and we found that the really effective ones looked like this. And we call this an intentional change network. And this is where we want you all to get. It has several things. First, it has a core that has hundreds of diverse people, and that diversity is key. And most of our networks don't have enough diversity. And the other piece, and that's really important, because diversity makes us challenge our assumptions, help us see things that we couldn't see, new ways of doing things, brings new ideas. And we really need that if we're going to make transformations, because hard work isn't enough. We have to make breakthroughs. We have to see things in new ways. Now, in that core, people need to not necessarily know everybody else in the core, but they need to know of them. So you can go to your friend and say, oh, can you tell me somebody that could work on graphics for this new thing we're doing? And so that way, all the resources in that network become accessible to you, because somebody's going to know the kind of resource person that you need. But the third thing about intentional change networks is that no one person or organization or small set of organizations dominates. And this is really important, because the key benefit of networks is that you get a lot more people initiating and coordinating action. It's not just you, not just your organization, but many, many people. Okay, so then the next part, and this is probably the most important slide in this presentation, is that how does action happen? The way action happens in networks is really, really different than organizations. In networks, really successful ones, anyone feels that they can say, oh, I want to start a community garden. They go out, they find a couple other people or organizations, they get some money and engage the people in the community, and they set up a garden. And that we call self-organizing. And all self-organizing means is that people are taking the initiative. They're not waiting for a plan. They're not waiting for a boss to tell them what to do. They're just doing it. And people in the local food networks have been better at, they are on the leading edge of this because, you know, we've all done, whether it's community gardens or setting up a healthy food program in a school or setting up a new distribution platform for farmers or working on a marketing initiative. There have been so many self-organized projects in local food systems. We just haven't maybe called them that. And the thing is, as long as those projects are staying in touch with each other and learning from each other, and most people are involved in more than one project, you are going to have a really transformative kind of action in the food system in a very short time, But this is, and we're going to talk more about this later, so don't worry if you don't totally get it, because this is the hardest kind of shift. Like, oh, you don't have to sit and plan what you're going to do. You more ask people, what do they really want to do? What are they interested in? What are they passionate about? And then help them do it. So your role often changes from a doer to a catalyst of other people doing. And that's why this is so powerful, because you get a lot more people acting. So the third piece is that this kind of network has what's called a periphery. That's people who are mainly only connected to one or two people in the network, and they're not really, wouldn't consider themselves to be part of like a local food systems network, but they're really important because they have additional resources. They have new ideas. Like if you're thinking of a new project and you're not doing bunch of internet and phone research and connecting with people that are already doing something like that, then you're really wasting a lot of your time, because you can find out all the mistakes they made and learn from them. And then also the periphery is important for your expansion. Like, so you got to stay connected and know out there who you can eventually get involved. And that's the way you're going to, be able to expand your network. So here, how do you get started? Well, most networks start with this set of scattered clusters, and then somebody, either a group or a set of organizations or one organization, or maybe you call yourself a backbone or whatever, starts reaching out to people and saying, hey, we want to do a local food network. And that's called a hub and spoke. And that's, the hub is really the dynamic one in this kind of making things happen. And that's really fine. That's an important step, but lots of groups get stuck there. And I'll bet a lot of you are kind of stuck there and like feeling overworked because you've got to do it all. And the important thing is to move to the multi-hub. And that's where the self-organizing. So what you do is instead of figuring out everything yourself, you go out and say, oh, what are people interested in? And you begin to form projects around what people are interested in, and you support them and coach them and help them be successful. And also make sure that they're still interacting with each other and sharing what they're learning and all their mistakes and the insights they're getting. And that's when they become an intentional change network. Okay, so let's take a minute here in the chat where you talk about, hey, okay, did you learn anything new in the last 10 minutes? What are some thoughts about how you might use this in your work? What are questions that you have about this? And so I'm not going to take much time here because we want to keep moving along, but go ahead and just take a few minutes while I'm going to keep going on, trying to get some questions down in the chat and maybe some thoughts about what provoked you here, and how might this change the way you think about your work. So go ahead and take a minute in the chat. Okay, we're going to move on how to get started. How do you get started with this? Well, there's 4 network strategies. And I know, I can't remember whether it was Yana or Christy in the beginning showed, sort of a triangle with 3 stages. And I've added a 4th one called support. And so the 4 strategies are to connect, to align, to act and learn, and to support. And I'm going to just go through each one of these real briefly so you understand them. Okay, first, what are some practical steps to better connect your network and make it a little bit bigger and more diverse? So the first step is bring a group together and help them map. And you can use, there's in the toolkit, activity 1, 2, and 3 are all about mapping your network and just using Post-it notes, or here, this group in Hawaii, they're using just some chart paper. And when you start mapping, and there's some questions, you need to think about who's kind of around the table now, and then you want to start thinking about, who could really add some benefit to your network, if you brought them in, and who's missing. That's a really important piece is, who's missing? Do you have, lots of age diversity? Do you have class diversity? Do you have racial and ethnic diversity, geographic diversity? All of these, you want to really make sure that you have as much diversity in your network, because that's going to help you be a lot more successful. Now, there's also software and web platforms, like the diagrams that you saw earlier were made on a thing called Kumu, Kumu, and it's something that people want to learn that, or I have some free software people can use. So there's lots of ways if your networks are fairly good size, you can use a software to help you really look at your network. And, it's not just even the map, it's the way it changes your brain and changes the way you think. You start thinking more about relationships and about who's in the room at the time. And so it's a really, really excellent, and everybody loves doing the mapping. So that's a really great activity that you could start with. Sometimes people map their whole network. Sometimes you just might start mapping a project that you're working on. Then you'll see people are missing. And so then the group doing the mapping, they can say, okay, one person will say, okay, I'll go talk to this person and this person. And each person takes maybe 1 or 2 people, and they go out and they have a conversation. Mainly what they do is ask questions like, what are you really interested in? What are your thoughts about this? And really listen to identify both the passions, what does that person care about, and then their gifts. What are you really good at? What do you like to do? And often groups that I work with create a Google spreadsheet, and they start putting down that information so other people can see. Because what you're trying to do by reaching out is not just be a hub and spoke. You reach out, you're going to try to connect that person to somebody else. And this is called closing triangles. And it's the most basic way to get your network healthier. And it couldn't be easier. So you have somebody that's, that's a volunteer, and they're interested in youth leadership. And then you're going to try to connect them to, here's a foundation that's interested in that. And I'm going to connect those two, have a conversation. You can even do it virtually now with things like Zoom, or you can do the old cup of coffee routine. But what you're trying to do is find if there's any sparks there when you bring these 2 people together. They've got to have something in common, but you want them to be different. And then you bring them together and see, is that the beginning of some action? Maybe they have an idea of something they could do, and then you help them find some other people and start meeting and help them with the skills they need to be successful in sort of project management. But this closing triangles to create twosies. Twosies are the most neglected part of network building. They're the foundation, because that's where people build relationships and get to know each other and know their strengths and weaknesses. And that's what makes successful projects. So strategy 2 is align around a network mindset. Now, I think that in networks, you really don't have to agree on much of anything. But the most important thing that you all have to have a network mindset. And that's a set of values and behaviors that make collaboration more successful. And so what we're going to do is, if you go into the chat now, and I'm going to get out of this presentation. I think that Yana in the chat is giving you a link, correct? Yes. I want you to click on this link, take the survey. It's like, 10 questions, then click submit or done. And then I'm going to get on there and still share the screen to show you the results. And we'll be able to see, do we have a network mindset as a group? So go ahead and start taking that survey. And in just a minute, I'm going to bring up the results on the screen. Ask people. Maybe in the chat, let us know when you're done. If you have any questions, just ask. Okay, we're going to start looking at it. Okay, I'm going to go down to the bottom, and you could do this too if you want, but we might as well share a screen. Okay. Oh, we have 18 responses already. Excellent, excellent. Okay. 18 responses. That can't be true. Why is it only showing up here? Let me keep clicking. Oh, I guess we have 21 people taking it. Okay, keep on going. Let us know when you're done. Anne was just super quick, I guess. I'm going to keep refreshing the screen. Looks like we have 7 people. Oh, no, I see. Yeah, we've got it. Okay, great. Anybody need a little more time? I think we've got most people. I'll try, keep refreshing it. Okay, we're up to 25. Okay, let's take a look then. Seems like most people, do we think we have most people? Yeah, okay. Okay, so what you do is, so this is showing that this group is really open to new ideas. Most of you got 5s and even a few 4s, nothing less than that. And enjoying diversity. Lots of people enjoy diversity. Okay, transparency. Now we got a few people that have a little more problem with transparency. I think that is true. Okay, the group is very, not super opportunity seeking. Not as many 5s on this. There are a few more 4s on this. Okay, number 5. Look at number 5. Can you see number 5 there? And number 6. Look at those two. So we've got, I am comfortable with uncertainty. So we have a lot more people that have a little discomfort with uncertainty. And I think that is true. And it's something we really need to work on together, how we can be more relaxed, because this network stuff will only work if we start to be a little more relaxed about uncertainty, because we're not going to always know what's going on or what the next step is going to be until we take the first step. Look, it's easy for me to let go of control. Now this one is even harder. So we have a bunch of type A's there that really like to make things happen, but they need that control. They need to feel that things are happening. So, maybe people can talk a little bit about their need for control. And part of it is number 7. I meant to take that question out, but in a way it's kind of insightful, because it shows part of the reason why we have trouble letting go of control is because our organizations really have trouble letting go of control. So we're fairly good at taking risks, working to make work fun. We're pretty strong there. And working to build trust. Excellent. Do most of my work collaboratively. Pretty strong there too. So you can see we have a lot of strengths. And then we also have some areas where we need to work. So what are people's thoughts about, and maybe you can just get in the chat here. How's our time going, Yana? Can you tell me?
With a time update. Yeah, we maybe about,
10 minutes slow.
10 minutes before the breakout rooms.
Okay, great. Oh, well, we've got plenty of time. Okay, so let's put in here. What are some thoughts you have about how we could learn to let go of control, or be more comfortable with uncertainty? Come on, let's write in the chat. What are some thoughts? How are we going to help each other here? Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm hoping I see some things here. Yeah, okay, so some of it's trust and lack of clarity. Kayla has a really good point about, our collaborators going to do their part, and is it going to be up to my standards? Yeah, I think and I think Hannah's right. Start small and practice, and I think that's one way to learn to let go of control and be comfortable with uncertainty. Yeah, for government, it is definitely, hard. Someday we should probably help you think about ways that you can work in government. Okay, I'm going to go on now, but this chart. You can actually make a copy of it, where you can send that link. You can save a copy of it and give this to any network that you have. And I find it's a really powerful tool. You can even do it once a month and see how you're changing. So anyway, something you might want to experiment with. Okay, so
can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, there's a lot of dialogue about metrics and showing performance metrics and outcomes and impact, and being able to illustrate that. And admittedly, in my experience with the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, is things can take they take time to form and to move, because it's all about relationships and trust. It starts with that.
Yeah.
And so do you have suggestions around, for these groups that are having to show these impacts and measurable outcomes, about how they can underscore the value of a network approach with their respective organizations?
Yeah, so we have a whole set of new metrics, the metrics that are about network metrics, and that's something else if you're interested in, we can learn. I have a whole set, and we're developing actually a network Fitbit. It's like, the little health app, only it's measuring things like the network culture survey over time. And what we've got to do is get our governments and organizational entities to legitimize some of these. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't also, there are also metrics that are more on outcomes in terms of the kinds of self-organizing, the number of maps. The network maps that you can do are metrics that can show whether you're really building a more effective network. So there's lots of metrics related to networks, some that are really outcome-based, like how many new projects did we have, and some like, your regular ones, how much shift did we see and such. But the thing is to also, you are what you measure. And if you're not measuring this network stuff, you're not going to get the network you need to get the really stupendous outcomes. So, that's a longer topic. But anyway, hopefully that made things a little provocative. Okay, so you can get copies of that checklist. And I have a bunch of other checklists on different other aspects of networks too. Okay, strategy 3 is moving from planning and to do lots of small projects that help you explore and learn more about the problem that you're trying to tackle or the system you're trying to change. And so what this means is that you've got to do a lot of clustering. And clustering is helping people who are interested in the same thing get together and actually do something themselves. And there's lots of things you can do, like those little twosies that we had. You help them become a cluster. You can do surveys where you say, which of these 5 things are you most interested in? And then you ask also, how willing would you be to convene and coordinate, this cluster? And then you can, out of the 5, you can say, okay, these 2, there's the most people interested. We've got 3 people in each that are willing to coordinate. Let's go with them. So there's lots of simple steps you can take to experiment with self-organizing. See, the nice thing about this, you don't have to go into it all at once. You can tiptoe into it and just try some experiments in self-organizing. So, you can actually, there's all kinds of activities for clustering in meetings as well. And they're all in the toolkit. Just think about trying one of them. And one thing people forget is you can start with really small things. Usually we think, we're going to totally change the way the schools deal with food. Well, that's a little big, but can you start out with something small, like a little school garden with, getting kids together and they get excited about growing their own food, whatever. It can start with very small acts. And that's how people build skills and learn to know each other. And then one last thing here, and this is supporting the network. And this is the part that I know, has been so neglected, is that this self-organizing can't happen unless you have certain things in place. And you've got to be able to support other people to work and act. And so this diagram right here is just really important, that you have to invest in creating tracking, reflection, learning, supporting self-organizing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, building network leadership, a really good communication system. And so just real briefly, in the handbook, in the toolkit, there is an activity that you can use to help you think about, say, your communication. How much is your communication allowing people to build relationships and collaborate? How much is it helping track network development, sharing and discussing information, capturing and sharing ideas for innovation? And so there's a blank chart like this where you can start thinking about, because communication in networks has to be engaging. It has to help people know each other and learn how to work together. And so there's lots of platforms that you can put together, the basic ones being some kind of video conferencing and Google Docs and an email list. But there's ones you need to put together, different platforms that help people stay in touch with each other. And then finally, and this is the last thing before breakout rooms, you have to restructure money. And so what people are doing is, because money has to support, you have somebody, if they're going to coordinate a project, they probably need to have some financial support for doing that. It takes time. You often need to have an innovation fund, and lots of groups get just $15,000 or whatever. And so the first projects, they say, hey, if you want to do a project, you can apply to this place and you'll get your answer in a couple weeks. And you can get, one $50 to $1,500. Another one said you get $5,000 if you apply. But you need to have money, quick money, for this self-organizing. And that allows people to get the expertise they need, pay for coordination and those kinds of things. The other thing is to help set up crowdfunding. And so, it's just amazing, the untapped potential in crowdfunding if we do it well. And so part of teaching people how to crowdfund to get the money that they need to, do what they need. So with that, we're going to let you have a chance to talk and get to know each other. and we're going to be breaking into breakout rooms. So is it Christy or Yana going to talk about this?
Well, June, really quick, I'm just wondering, I know we're a tiny bit behind schedule, but if we could take just one question, because I know there's people that are coming from many different size organizations that are here today. And there was a question, it was actually one of the first questions that was presented from Anne, and it's, she wanted to hear a little bit more about the different scales of networks and whether or not they operate differently. And I know we don't have time to do all the questions, but I just wonder if you could touch on
Well, networks, usually networks are networks of networks. Like, in fact, you are, in a sense, a network of networks. I mean, there's lots of smaller local networks, and then you're trying to get almost a coordinating and synergistic network throughout the regional kind of thing. But networks I work with networks that are like all the organizations in the United States that are, trying to end violence against women. Well, that's a huge network, so there's networks can be very, very large, and they can be small, so it can be a local network just in one community. And usually there's no boundaries to most of these networks. Many of them don't have anything like membership. And so that's really nice, because that's why I think the local food economies have been so successful, because they didn't have real boundaries. So they moved into working with pantries and on poverty and food access issues. At the same time, they worked on entrepreneurship and how can we get local food businesses. And all that fits within sort of these sub-networks that are loosely connected. But networks can also be very, very large and span the continent, or now there are quite a few, certainly international networks as well. And the strategy, though, these strategies are amazingly powerful, even though, depending on the size. If you help people self-organize, and you set up a really good support system, you're going to see amazing change in a fairly short period of time. And that strategy works with whatever size network you have. You're not trying to get everybody to know each other, but just to know enough people that they can pull together the resources and the different perspectives they need to make something happen.
Thanks, June.
Okay, breakout rooms.
Great, I'm happy to jump in here. So this is another opportunity to try out a feature of Zoom, which is to go into these virtual breakout rooms. And so in just a moment, June is going to randomly distribute us into rooms of 3 or 4 people. And each breakout room has 3 questions to go over. One is just to introduce yourselves. Oh, great. Hang on. Where did it go? Just to introduce yourself, your organization and company and your position, and your experience with networks briefly. And then spend a few minutes talking about how Zoom or other virtual tools might support what you're learning today. And then finally, we really would like to hear from you about how the Chesapeake Foodshed Network can support your work in network development. And so we'd love to get some feedback there. And each breakout room should please assign a facilitator, a timekeeper, and a note taker. And if you can take notes in your chat box, every chat within the breakout rooms is actually private to that breakout room. And so if the note taker could also save the chat, which is an option, I think, in the drop-down menu that should be, where you can just save it and then email it to me, yona@chesapeakefoodshed.net. Then we'll have a record of it and we'll be able to capture the feedback that you're providing for us. Christy, Hannah, and I are going to stay in this main space. We're just going to hop out of any breakout room that we're assigned to. We're going to be in this main space. And so if you have any problems getting into a breakout room, we'll be here to try to help you work through that. And June will be hopping around from room to room.
Just in case you have problems.
Right, just to check in.
When I do open the rooms, you will have to click on a little box that says, do you want to go into a breakout room? Okay, are you ready?
Yes, and the instructions are in the chat box too, in case you weren't able to capture them. And I'll post them again after you're in the breakout room.
That's great. And please unmute yourself so that you can speak with each other.
I did unmute everybody, so you should be all okay. Okay, I'm going to open the rooms. You should go there soon, and I'll come around to see everything's okay. Okay? Okay, I'm going to. Lindsay, you have any problems? Gail? I don't know. Lindsay's not showing up here. It may be the, oh, she has not joined yet. So Kayla is all by herself. So maybe one of you could go to breakout. Hannah, could you go into breakout room 3 because Kayla's all alone?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to go around to the rooms and let's see. So every room's got at least 2 people in it. Okay. Okay, I'm going, and it looks like, I don't know what the situation with Gail is. Gail, can you hear us? Okay, I'm going to go around to the breakout rooms.
Thanks so much, June. And great presentations.
Okay, now I'm going to go into breakout room 2.
I don't know if you were.
Hey, June.
Hold on, I'm going to go to the next one. So far, so good.
Oh, good. Thanks for
Something had popped up to say, do you want to join now or later? And I just said later.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to do 4.
These needs that folks have around more training around metrics.
Zoom last night.
Did I go to all of this? Okay, I guess I did. Yeah, oh, okay, I went to all. No, I missed 5. Sorry. I got the wrong.
I noticed it.
Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
we better check our time.
So we had everybody coming back by 2:10. So that would give people just, 6 minutes here.
Yeah, let's give them till 2:15, don't you think?
I think so too. I think that a little bit more time there is great. And that gives us 5 minutes to report back. And so, however, if we were going to invite everybody to report back in the chat anyway, and then just if people wanted to add anything verbally, give them a few minutes to do that.
Well, it's a small enough group that I think we could do it verbally, unless it's, somebody's too noisy. And then all there is reporting back and then their next steps and then just going through all this stuff. So 15 minutes will be plenty enough time, I think, for that.
June, let's try doing it verbally and maybe just asking if we need to mute everyone, then maybe they just say in the chat box who's going to report out for their room so you can.
They can unmute themselves too.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, good.
But let's try it all together because I've done, this group's not that big, that as long as nobody's making too much noise.
So what did we get? Half of what was registered, just that 50% is how it works.
That's how it works. People get too busy. They really want to come, but
Oh, that's such a nice way of thinking about things. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm
Stuff
serious.
comes up, and they do, but it seems like, that they're taking to it pretty well. I mean, we did have more problems than I've ever had before, just in terms of videos. But,
June, I was telling Yona, I got kicked out, actually.
what?
I got kicked out twice.
Wonder what that was all about.
Well, one of them wasn't completely, it was like a hybrid kick out. It was like just everything froze, but then it came back up. And then the next one, I actually had to log back in.
Do you have, is your bandwidth being a little shaky today, or?
I don't know how to tell. I mean, I've got full bars on my little, whatever it is. That's about how much I know.
Your phone? Are you on your phone?
No, I'm in the computer.
Your computer.
But I'm looking at, what is this? This little icon. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Mine always says I have all the bars and even when I don't have good connection. But.
So I don't know. But this
yes, she
isn't just
does.
with Zoom, so maybe it is me because GoToMeeting has been kind of flaky too.
Well, I mean, that's why you just have to have all the, more than one person responsible and,
Yeah, that's
whatever. If I'd gotten knocked out for a minute, you all could have taken over and just,
Hey, a good question that also came up was about diversity and how to expand or ways to expand diversity. I don't know if you want to touch on that,
Well,
but
there is a little worksheet.
which one is it?
It's called Who is Missing. I mean, it doesn't say anything, but I can give an example. I'll tell a little story about a group that I worked with that was trying to help, like, Hispanic workforce was the fastest growing part of the workforce. It was a workforce network. And the network map we did showed that their network of 100 people, it had one Latina in the whole 100 network. I said, well, and she was way on the outside, and so, oh, thank you, my dear.
I'm jealous.
What is it? Wow, I don't know. Yeah, oh yeah. I can't figure out what it is. Anyway,
I got water.
but so I said, what do you think this map means? And then we talked about, so I had already looked up on the internet, what are all the Latina organizations in the area? Because they said, oh, well, we don't know who to reach out to. So I said, I did an internet search and I came up with these 6 organizations. Who's going to check out, who's going to meet with all of them?
Yeah, nice.
And and then had people brainstorm some people that they knew, and they had they had the list of people, and some of these 2 people went to one organization. And
so it's really leaning on your leadership, your network, to identify ways to expand, to be more diverse. Is what it sounds like. I mean, maybe that's simplifying it too much, but
well, it's just like, doing the research you need and finding out from your network. Do you know anybody? Is there anybody that anybody has even knows of? Knows of is like a really important thing sometimes when people don't. They're so separated.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Sorry, Yona. Did you have other things you wanted to things you needed?
No, I was just going to note the time. So maybe it's just because it gives the extra 30 seconds for people to wrap up. Maybe it's good. The next 30 seconds to end the chat.
They do give 30 seconds.
Right. And that's what I mean. So if in 30 seconds you ask them to wrap it up, then they'll be back here by, oh, sorry. We said 2:15. I'm sorry. I still had my 2:10.
2:10 thing on. Yeah.
I was stuck on that. But I was speaking about the diversity piece. I was just saying that I think the mapping piece is really essential, and asking and gathering demographic information is really essential, because then you can map your network and see who's there and who's not, so that you can move to the opportunities to reach out, and the kind of the know of that you said, and make changes as needed.
Okay.
I'm feeling antsy. You think they're okay in those rooms?
Oh, they love it. They're loving it. They're loving it.
Really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they look good. They were listening to each other. And when did they go in?
I want to say 150-ish. Does that sound right to you, Yona?
I think maybe closer to 155.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we can let them come back in another minute or so. You don't have to.
Well, it might allow for some,
because we have so much,
question.
for their first taste. Because some of them only had 2 people in the group.
Yeah.
So, even though it listed people, some of them didn't end up going.
Okay,
let's let.
I don't have problems with attention, apparently.
Okay.
Oh. Hey, Kathy, how's it going?
So, are we sending them back, bringing people back?
What's that?
June was just asking if we were bringing people back from the breakout rooms.
I wasn't sure. I was asked.
I was the one to leave to see how you navigate between the two.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah, I guess we didn't tell people. They would just be automatically brought back.
You get swooped in.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, yes, people should be back.
I'm working on
How did you like it? How did you like it?
It was cool. I'm actually working on a tweet that says that you popping in and out of our room was very much like Harry Potter. It felt like to me.
Oh, what a compliment.
It was like she like popped in and then anyway, it's been a minute since I've watched Harry Potter, so I have to look up my references before I start hashtagging.
Megan, each time she would come back into our room and go, okay, I'm going to go into breakout room 3 now. And then she
Yeah, I go,
disappear.
now, did you have everybody come back?
No, I think, June, that you.
I've got to.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so 30 seconds. Everybody will be back
Get
here.
ready for this, Megan.
I got to
They're
get
gonna
the chat
volunteer.
back on. Woo! Okay.
It's nice to see you, Christy.
Oh, thanks. You
Isn't
as
it
well.
great? Isn't it great? It was so fun the
Oh,
first time I got to
very
see
wise.
you. Yeah.
Here
Okay,
we
everybody's
go.
coming back. Yay! Oh,
Oh, we got to work it out.
okay. So what we're going to do now is, now I hope you remembered to save your chats. Anyway, you might want to put, okay, you can see up in the chat. You send it to Yana at ChesapeakeFoodshed.net. So we have a little bit of time here. Maybe we could have one person from the group, each group, talk a little bit about, what you came up with, especially things for CFN to do. What do you want the network to do, or any other insights that your group came up with? So who wants to talk first? You can just talk it.
I was just saying something to my group as we got shuttled back to the main thing, so I'll say something. Something that would be useful to me, because I'm trying to, build a coalition around Maryland around school food, would be if CFN, surveyed the people that are in its network on topics that they care about, and then worked to connect those people in a concrete way, not just sort of this person's out there and has a project, you can cold call them, but hey, you guys are all interested in school food, talk,
Yeah, and even set up some Zoom sessions or something. They're so easy, they don't really cost anything. Yeah. Okay, great idea. Who else?
So we had a lot of interest on our listserv, which is a national listserv, so people don't communicate like person to person necessarily, but there was interest in looking at what was happening at the state level and how positions were being supported and what kind of networks were developing at the state level. And we had one call, and the technology was we messed it up completely. So the first 10 minutes of the call, no one heard anything. And we didn't know they weren't hearing us. It was horrifying. And then we finally figured it out, realized it was over.
Okay, we're gonna have to mute everybody. You can, because we're getting a bunch of feedback, but you can unmute yourself. So, Anne, you can unmute yourself, okay?
Okay. I think I'm still.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. And what I realized, we had someone who posed a question to us saying, what about these state positions? This is like such an ideal platform to have a conversation with people who are interested in talking about how have they gotten support from state governments and from other entities to create these statewide positions. And that's something, I was just like, wow, this is like the perfect platform, because it's usually about, 30 people, 25 people on the call. So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be more of a discussion, and we're just help facilitating it.
Yeah. So, it may be some other people might be interested in learning a little bit more about Zoom, because Zoom puts on great little workshops, right? Well, Yana, you took some, didn't you? Yeah, great workshops. So that could be something. And if anybody else is interested in learning Zoom, just put your name in the chat and see what we can do. Okay, who else? you're going to have to unmute yourself, but please don't hesitate.
I'll just say that we didn't have any recommendations that came from our group chat, but the three of us all agreed that we really appreciate the resources that CFN has been putting together lately. I know personally, I love getting that regular email that has the list of all the professional development opportunities, grants, and other great resources within food systems work that we can then, I work at PASA, I work with farmers and other food systems professionals, and we share that information, all the time. And I really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Becky. Okay. Who else?
A couple of the people in our group mentioned that they thought Zoom would be a great feature to be able to use within their networks, but might not be financially feasible for them. And we're wondering about maybe using some of CFN resources or jumping on our lines to host meetings, if that would be a possibility.
Yeah, but it is only $140 a year. So lots of groups. If you have problems with that still, then yeah, Christy could maybe talk about that, or but it is very inexpensive. Very inexpensive.
Right. We've actually done that with GoToWebinar, where we have just helped to host a meeting for an organization that wanted to reach its audience, and we handled the logistics. Yona is an expert with GoToWebinar and is happy to do that, but we could also do something similar with Zoom. We're happy to, kind of handle those sort of logistical needs that organizations have so that they don't have to worry so much about them. And if it helps in terms of the financial piece, then that's a win-win.
Great. So do we have one last group? You have to get used to these longer silences until people get used to acting on Zoom. Was there anybody else? One more chance. Okay, everybody had a chance, and hopefully you got a chance to know somebody, maybe even that you didn't know before. It's really great sometimes when you have a very concrete topic to have even a half an hour session. You can really get to know people really well that way. Okay, I see a couple people are going to have to leave. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to just close up with. Anything else you wanted to add, Christy or Yana, about what people are saying?
Well, I just want to first, June, thank you very much for the presentation. I have June's handbook here, and before I even started with the network, this was such a great resource to kind of begin to think around what it means to be a part of a network, and there's a lot of really practical tools in there. But thank you, June, very much for your time. I did hear, we're trying to do work across 6 states, as many of you know, and so any way that we can bring people together without having to meet in person, it certainly doesn't replace it, but if we can do it in a more meaningful way, then we need to capitalize on those different pieces of technology that can help us. So I really see this as a useful tool that I appreciate you all being willing to walk through it with us. A couple things that I would like to follow up on, and we can think about this. We've been developing this network development series because we recognize it's one thing to say that, we're starting this network, but there are tools and practices that we all need to sort of learn to better understand what it means to be part of a network. And so this network development series is intended to help us all improve our networking capabilities and strengthen the network. And so, a couple things that came out that we will follow up on. One is Zoom. We'd be happy to look at other opportunities for learning around this tool. And then a few other things I also heard were software, just providing space to kind of practice new software like Kumo, I think that was what it was called, June, and other. So if you guys come across software that you all are interested in learning more about and want to just pull together a group to practice, we'd be happy to help facilitate that. The other was around network metrics, and I do think there's a whole bunch of information out there. Ann had mentioned some network mapping that they had done with their Chesapeake Food Leadership Institute, which I thought was really, it was rather, it seemed like it was pretty simple, and also showed some really fantastic relationships that had resulted from that institute. So even just learning from that, Ann, I think would be super helpful. So just wanted to say we heard you, and we can follow up on some of those needs.
And just if you look in the chat, I've got a handbook, a shorter handbook on introduction to network weaving, and you can get it lower price with this code here. You might want, and then the full 400-page handbook. Again, you get $20 off with this code. There's a Facebook group that anytime you have a question about networks, it's a fabulous group. It's got about 1,400 people on it now. Really good people. There's also my email list web page. The group of network weavers has a web page. It's going to be all new in another couple weeks, but and then I have this Scoop It that has articles where I collect articles on networks that you can join, that you can click on that and see a bunch of really fun articles on networks. So those are just a few more resources. But we have 7 minutes, and I think there's two things we want to do. Is first, there is one more question that I'm going to take when we're done with this first step. But I'd like if you would commit to doing one thing in the next couple weeks. It might be trying an activity in the toolkit. It might be doing some reading. It might be joining the Facebook group. It might be being part of a Zoom group. Just type in the chat what you're thinking that you will try out to expand your network way of learning and being in the next couple weeks. So everybody take a chance and write something in the chat, and it always really helps to make some kind of public commitment. We're not asking you to do anything big here, but it's one small step. Okay, great. Yes, a plan for a network communication ecosystem. That would be excellent. Reading. Oh, a Zoom chat. Yeah, great. This is excellent. Mapping tools. Excellent. Yeah, read some more in the book. Okay, great. Join the Facebook page. It's an excellent page. Okay, excellent. Share this at a staff meeting. Now, one thing, you're going to be able to have access both to the PowerPoint we used today and to this recording. And you could show a piece of this recording. It's just an MP4 file, and you can actually turn it on. And like if you're going to share it with your group, you could take 10 minutes of my talk or something and share it with people. Or you can show the PowerPoint yourself and even change it. This is all Creative Commons stuff. So you can change it and print it out, share it with people. You can print out the toolkit and share it with as many people as you want. Anyway, so it's all yours to do with what you want. Okay, yeah, and it sounds like a couple people, Kumu, it might be fun to get a little Kumu group. It's a web-based platform, really fun and not too hard. Okay, so the one last thing is to take a few questions. And somebody asked about diversity. And what I found is that, how do you get diverse people in your group if your group's all pretty much alike right now? And so I was going to tell a little story about, I worked with a workforce network in Iowa, and they were, there was 100 people in this network and very, active. But the workforce was already 25% Hispanic, and that percentage of the workforce was growing. And yet when I did a network map for them, there was one Latina woman, and she was on the outside of the network. So I didn't have to say anything about the lack of diversity. I showed them the map, and they all go, oh, because everybody was white and one Latina woman. And so then they started saying, well, how do we we don't know anybody who's Hispanic. And so I said, oh, well, here's what I did. And I had gone on the internet, found 6 different organizations, Latino organizations, and showed those to them. And then I also said, okay, let's just brainstorm. Anybody we know that would be a good Latina leader to bring into this group. And so they brainstormed 6 names, and then they went out and met with these organizations. They met with these 6 people they had identified, and within a few months, their network was much more diverse. So often it's like, who do you know? So get people to think, oh, who do you know that might be good? Or who do you know that you could ask about this? And doing the mapping activity really helps people see that in a non-judgmental way, that they are missing quite a few people in their network, and that there are simple steps to take to try to make it more diverse. So anybody else want to add something on that? You can unmute yourself, remember.
So we're working on a strategic plan in my area for local foods, and I'm in Iowa. We're very white, especially in the rural area that I am in. But we do have a few communities where there are populations of color, specifically Latino and Latina communities. And same problem, we have very few people in our network that we actually know. And so we've had this discussion of how do we engage people in the strategic planning and do so without it feeling like tokenism, like, oh, let's just go over to that one town and grab 5 people that don't look white and ask them to come participate. So how do you kind of balance that as you try to build a network?
Well, that's why the internet is really good, because starting with, if there are some organizations that you can identify, that's such a good way. And then there's leadership there. And then all you have to do is find 1 or 2 key hubs in that community. And so often the churches might know somebody who's like, oh yes, this person's really civic minded. I mean, you have to think what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who's civic minded, who cares about the particular issue you're involved in. There might be some businesses. So there's some Latino businesses that, food businesses that, are in the community. So you just start, being creative, and your group can get together. And usually if you have 1 or 2 people in the community that you can contact with, and you then ask them, okay, can you kind of map out the community here, the Latino community, and just tell me who's who, and give me a little background. And you do that with 1 to 3 people, and you will have a really good map and a sense of, this person will say, oh, this person's a really, generous. They give to their community. And so that might be somebody you would want on. Or this person is really, started a community garden or something, something related. So, that's might be a good person. Or in the schools is another area. So maybe there's a school teacher that's Latina and who might be a good person who would be kind of depends on what your strategy is. Okay. Okay. How about, do we have time for another quote? Well, no, we don't. We want to end on time. And so I think we're going to say our goodbyes. And thank you all for coming. It's been really great. I'm just so proud of you all being brave to try this new technology and have fun with us today. And thank you for all your good. We will be getting back to everybody, and you'll get the copy of the chat, link to the chat and everything. So if there are people on here you want to contact, you can just make sure Yana or Christy, you email them and they can get you contact information for everybody here.
Okay. Well, Yona, you'll be following up over email, right?
Exactly, and I'll send out upcoming programs as well if you want to connect with us further, and we'll be synthesizing and thinking on the ideas you've given us, and we'll be in touch shortly. Thank you, June, so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
Everyone for your participation. This has been really exciting, empowering, and wonderful experience to share.
No.
It's just the beginning. Okay, I'm going to end the recording, and bye-bye, folks. Thanks for coming once again.